Hello and welcome, my name is Parky and today we're going to be doing another Let's Build in Spore. So unlike all the other episodes, we're going to be doing the first vehicular creation, and more specifically it's going to be our first spaceship. Now when you think of a spaceship, one of the first ones that I would think of would be the Starship Enterprise. Now someone has actually suggested this one as well, so thank God for that. Now if you have a little look at the picture in the top right, you can kind of see that there's four major sort of parts to this spaceship. First of all, which is going to be fairly easy, is going to be this sort of central main deck, I guess you could call it, at the front. Then we've got sort of like an engineering bit at the bottom, and then two thrusters, I guess you could say. So, we're going to use this for the main compartment. I'm not sure how big we really want to make this. I suppose we can make it moderately substantial, actually. Go for something like this. We can always change the size as we go along. So this is almost perfect already for what we're looking for. So we're going to keep it a bit more like this, maybe thicken it slightly like that. And we don't need to make it that much bigger, do we? I think that's probably fine. Now luckily enough in Spore there's this shape which is just completely perfect for this job. But next up we have a thruster. Now I think what we're going to do is we're going to go into the space section and maybe go for an actual thruster. Or sort of like the engineering bit at the bottom. I'm not sure if there's actually a thruster on the bottom part, but maybe there is. I have no idea. But either way, this one looks pretty damn cool. Alternatively, what we could do is go for something out of these other menus. I'm not really sure what else is here that we could use for that. There's quite a few options, so maybe there's something. I think just to stick a bit closer to reality, what we're going to do is we're going to use another shape to construct this bottom part. I'm not sure if there's one in this menu which will particularly do our job for us. But we can soon find out. I guess this one's fairly close. It's weird, it's kind of like a funnel shape. It's sort of bigger at the front and smaller at the back. So I'm not really sure which one of these could do that. Okay, so I've had an idea, and I think maybe this one will do for the bottom. Now, I think this is supposed to be like an aeroplane chassis, but we're going to use it kind of like this, using it upside down. But it's got this sort of round bit on the front, which is very similar to the Starship Enterprise. So we're going to make it a bit longer, and then I'm not sure if we want to really make this any fatter. I suppose we could do, maybe make this a bit shorter, but then increase the length this way instead. Oh, it starts bringing this out over here, doesn't it? But actually that does kind of look quite good. So we're going to leave it like this. I think it might be a bit too long now, so we're going to make this a bit fatter at the back. Like that. Okay, so we got the sort of basis of the bottom part as well. But I think if we're going to do this, we need to almost make this a little bit bigger. Maybe instead of doing it this way, make it just wider, like this. But then it makes the central bit a bit large, doesn't it? I suppose it does kind of point out a little bit like that. Fine. Okay, we'll use this. And we're going to bring this down slightly, because then we need to connect these two bits together. And I think the way we're going to do this is using one of these other blocks. Perhaps one of these. I think if we rotate this around slightly like this, make it smaller, and sort of merge the two together a little bit, like so. How does it connect? It kind of connects like this, doesn't it? Then make it a bit thinner. Okay, right, I think we're going to need to move this a little bit inwards, like this. But it looks okay. It looks strange at the moment because we haven't got any of the rest of it on there, but I think if we just leave that for now, it'll look okay once we put the wings on, the proper engines. In fact, I think this needs to be a bit bigger and come back a little bit more because it does stretch quite far back beyond the main saucer of the ship. Okay, so let's not fiddle around too much. I think what we're going to do is, I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to connect these two parts easily or not. Maybe if we go for something like, oh look, this is almost perfect actually, isn't it? I'm wondering whether we could use these instead and then make them look a bit beefier. Let's try it out, because this is almost perfectly made, isn't it? Yeah, look, you can make them longer, you can make them a bit fatter as well. And I think if we rotate it around slightly, it's not very big, is it? Maybe what we could do then is shrink these down so they're small and add a separate part from here in there. See if there's a long, thin tube that we could put on there and then we can add details to it later on. That might be a good idea. Okay, we can only put these down in the centre, that's a bit of a pain. But what we can do then is we can maybe stick other things on here that will make them look a bit beefier. So what have we got in here? We've got some arms, we've got these, I think I would like one of these plasma jets because they look almost perfect for the job. If we stick this on here like this and then try and rotate it so it clips in, and then we can make it really big. Something like this. Okay, well first of all we need to move these in slightly because they're not so far back on the bottom part of the ship. We're then going to rotate them, I think that's actually fine, the positioning, but we're going to rotate this forwards a little bit like so, and then put this on the back part just to make it look a bit more like complicated engine-y. Because I think that the more complex it looks, the more parts that are hanging off it, the more sci-fi it looks as well. So we're going to go for a look kind of like this, because it makes it just look a bit chunkier, doesn't it, around the back? Okay, and then what we can try and do is stick something on the front just to make this look a bit more chunky on the front end. And I think what we could do for that is maybe look in this menu, see if there's anything in here that we can use. So of course on the front of these we have two sort of like windowed blobs, I suppose you could call them. So if we find something that really fits on there like that, we can use these things. I think would look pretty damn cool. But then we need something to stick on front of these, just to make them look a little bit thicker, because they don't currently look thick enough, do they? Okay, so we put the fans on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this light on like I was planning. Maybe we could even go for this glow port instead. Yeah, that looks really good in there. So we're going to fit that in the middle, like this, so that it hides the fans slightly. Actually, I think it was better positioned before. What am I doing? Okay, and we can rotate this around a little bit. Maybe just move it slightly. There we go. Right, so that's sort of the look of the front, right? And then I suppose what we could do is try and make these a little bit thicker, like this. And then it fits on there slightly better with that round thing at the front. Okay, and then we can shift that just to change the position slightly. Right, so they're the engines. I'm pretty happy with them. They're as close as you're probably going to get, to be honest. Especially with Spore, anyway. Okay, and then what else can we do? We can probably try and make these a bit thicker at the base of these spines, these arms that are holding up the engines, because these are a bit thin looking, and I think we could make them look a bit more like attached and sturdy. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to get into a ship where the engines didn't look like they were attached very well. So let's go for something like this, and then we can make it a bit thinner, maybe just bring it up slightly like this. I'm kind of going sort of by the picture, but also just for what looks moderately good on this, because I think it's difficult to make things look perfect. Okay, and then on the front of this main sort of engineering level here, we've got a sort of big grate on the front with a light behind it. So maybe just go for a light with some sort of like grate in the middle, maybe something like this. Make it bigger. Can we make this any flatter? It doesn't look like it. It sticks out a bit too much, so I'm going to get rid of that. Maybe if we use this instead, and then we can make it just a bit wider and a bit bigger like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think it looks okay. Now, in the middle of the top of the sort of saucer here, there should be a sort of window, vaguely. I mean, I suppose there aren't really windows in it, are there, as such? But there's a sort of like area in the middle that sticks up just a little bit more, and it's kind of in this shape, or something more like this one. We can make it a little bit shorter. I don't want it quite as long as that. And I think we're just going to have it sort of sticking up slightly in the middle there. I know it doesn't really have windows on the top, but again, give me my due. I can't do everything. So we're going to go for the lights now. And I think on top of this, we're just going to put a single one of these blobs, because there's a single light on the top of that area. And then there's a few lights scattered around the main sort of ship disc, and they're sort of square in shape. So if we've got any square ones, I suppose we could go for these looktangles, but these glow stats are probably going to be the best. So let's put these down. Now there's about 4 of them in total, and they do almost look exactly like that, so we can just stick with that as our design. It's difficult because you can only actually place things within this area, so because this is slightly off screen, out of the build area, we're going to have to move all of this, which is going to be a bit of a pain. But I think it will be worth it. So let's just move this up here like that. We're going to shift this back where it was, something like there, and then move this back slightly to there, and then move this back like so, and then this in the middle, like this. Okay, has that changed how anything looks? It looks pretty much the same. I think the disc's still a bit too far forwards. Let's just bring this up like that, and this seems okay, I think. Yeah, okay, let's see if we can place down the windows now, or these lights even. So we can sort of just about fit it on here. So if I just move this back here like this, I know this isn't quite accurate, but again, with the size constraints, maybe if we made the ship a little bit smaller to begin with, we could do it. But you know what, bigger is better. I don't care what anyone says. Okay, so I've put down this little light in the centre here as well. It's going to stick out a little bit, but I think it looks okay. And maybe if we move this forwards a little bit, because I think it is a bit too far forward. Unfortunately, we are going to lose those lights at the front I placed down. But at the same time, I'd rather have it looking a bit more like this than the other way. Okay, now you can't fiddle around with this too much. I think the only other thing that I really want to do is maybe make this look a bit better down here. So put just a few little lights and other little objects on there. There's a few vents that I'd like to put down. There's like this one here, which are a bit small. We can put down the vents like that. I suppose, again, this is sort of like just going with what I would like to put on it. But it's okay. It's good to mess things up a little bit. There's kind of a strip on the back of this as well in between these two. So I think what we'll do is maybe put down one of these objects just to give it a little bit of detail on the top. And how we're going to achieve that is using this block here. And we're going to make it a bit smaller, a bit longer though, and try and shrink it in slightly like that. Now, does that look good? It looks a bit fat on the bottom, so let's make this smaller. Move it up, again make it even smaller than that, so it doesn't stick through the bottom too much. And something like that. I think that's good. Yeah, okay, fine. That looks good. Obviously we can't write the Enterprise on here, unfortunately, but it's okay. Right, so let's now do the paint job, because this, well, it's going to be fairly easy, let's be honest. It's mostly just silver. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go for sort of like it's a very smooth silver finish, isn't it? So we can't even really give it much texture. But I think we're going to give it this silver colour. Oh, that looks... Maybe we do need to give it a bit of texture. It looks a bit odd otherwise, doesn't it? We need to find something that's not quite as obvious. There's a lot of funky patterns. You can make it out of wood. I'm not really sure whether it would work if it was made out of wood. I certainly wouldn't want to be getting into it. Maybe this one. How does that look? It's sort of like a multi-tonal thing, so we can put like darker patches. Oh, yeah, I like that one. Okay, so maybe if we then make this just a little bit darker... Does that look better? Yeah, I prefer that. Okay. And we're going to make all of this the same colour, like so. And then we're going to go back and change it in a second. Okay, so there we go. We're going to just change all of this to silver. Everything base silver colour to begin with, like this. I'm going to change this as well. And does anything else need doing? The bottom in the middle there, and this strip here as well. So now we've got the base silver colour. Most of it is silver, I will admit. So next up, I think we're going to go for a bit of detail in maybe this, see if that looks alright. And we're going to go for a darker grey, like this, and just pick up the little details on here in a slightly different colour, because I think it's a bit boring if you make it all exactly the same, let's be honest. So we're going to make these circles here a bit darker, maybe the rim on these things a bit darker, maybe these vents here as well. I'll tell you what, we'll make this top bit a bit darker as well, and also these light things. Okay, right, now what else is there to do? There's sort of like, maybe we can change a bit of this as well, just to make it look a bit more interesting. This back bit, where it's connected? Sure, okay, fine. Okay, so here we are, I've just topped it up with a little bit of change of paint on the top here, and a few little other details, but it's pretty much as silver as it's going to get. So let's call this the Starship Enterprise. Perfect. It's spectacular. Fantastic. Can we actually test this out at all? I don't think we can. That's a bit of a shame. Well, here it is. Maybe we should change the colour of this here, because it doesn't really stand out that much at all. Well, it's certainly not purple anyway, so we'll just turn that into maybe this colour. Maybe we'll make it even a bit darker than that. Maybe this colour like this. Yeah, that looks better. Fine. The Starship Enterprise. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to leave your suggestions for what I should build next time, then all you have to do is leave a comment in the video below. Also, if you want to support the series, please feel free to leave a rating, and also subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, awkward, goodbye. Awkward.